Thank you so much for joining 98%, Hallie.
Of
I'm
course.
so excited to have you on here to share your story. So I'm just going to lay down the context of 98%. As some of you already know, 98% stems from one statistic that only 2% of collegiate athletes go pro. So what happens to the other 98%? We are literally walking around in the streets, the malls, schools, at work, living our regular lives, and nobody knows what we have accomplished at such a young age, and into our young adult years. So my goal is to really empower former athletes to share their story. And Hallie, you are one of the athletes that I believe your story can really impact and inspire other people.
Thank you.
Yeah. So, Hallie, I'm just going to run through your career highlights because
Okay.
I think that'll definitely lay down how tremendous your accomplishments are when you start sharing your story. So,
Thank
I'm on
you.
the UCLA Bruins website.
Okay.
So, if it's not all there, you let me know. Okay.
Okay.
So, Hallie, you're a two-time All-American on four exercise, first team All Pac-12 on four exercise in 2017, two-time Pac-12 Specialist of the Week, two-time Pac-12 Freshman of the Year in 2014, and two-time USA National Team member. I mean, like, what? Is that everything? Did we catch it all?
It's like those are some highlights, yeah, for sure.
Those are some highlights. Go ahead, girl.
Those are the
With your
most
dad
highlights.
jokes.
No, those are most of the highlights, yes.
I
Honestly, I
love
probably can't
it.
remember everything, but those are like definitely the highlights.
Yeah. No,
Yeah.
anybody asks me like, what are your fastest times? I'm like, what does it say on Google?
Oh yeah, I have to look it up too.
Look back. Just knowing you and knowing your story and like us being in college together and seeing each other in the training room where we saw each other a lot trying to fix our injuries. I just wanted you to kind of start from the beginning, when you were an elite gymnast and that transition to college, and help us understand your journey to college athletics.
So I was training for a while for the U.S. national team. When I first I did this. It was new at the time. It was a new level. It was called Hopes, and I made that national team when I was 11 years old. But then I made the U.S. national team for the first time when I was 12 or 13. I was a junior. So I was competing with them for a while, and then my junior year of high school, I actually got into a car accident and broke my hip. And it was the year before London, and I was still on the national team, so I was training, with that, like with a goal of trials in mind. And I had to end up getting surgery on my hip after one of the national team camps where it was so bad that I was going to practice and making it, and I would come back to my like room or dorm room or whatever you want to call it. My legs would just like collapse. Like they would give out, I would fall. So I ended up having to get hip surgery. I got some metal put in my hip and got a lot done because I fractured it. And I ended up trying to come back too fast and broke the metal in my hip. So I had to get another surgery on that a few months later, and that was in March or so of 2012. And then going into my senior year, which was the fall of 2012, going into 2013, a couple months after my hip surgery, my leg wasn't strong enough to come back, and it gave out, and I ended up tearing my ACL. So that was another surgery. So I had 3 really, really, really major surgeries right before I came to UCLA. So that was a journey within itself of trying to find the love for the sport again, and like my drive and determination to come back to the sport. And I had it. I really wanted to be a Bruin, so I did whatever I could. Ended up coming back in 2013, and I still wasn't fully cleared yet, actually, when I got to UCLA.
Mhm.
So I'm very proud that I was able to compete all around and get those freshman honors because I honestly, like, we come back for, oh my gosh, it's such a blur, but I'm pretty sure we would come back for our preseason in early September. And I don't remember starting actually doing real gymnastics and training with my injuries. I don't think I trained until like November, really late
Mm.
November, and our season is January. So I kind of got everything back really quickly before I came in as a freshman. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, wow. That's a lot to handle
Yeah.
for someone that's barely even 18 yet.
Hmm.
I couldn't even imagine. What what gave you the motivation? Like, where did you find your motivation to find love for the sport again? Um,
Um, I'm so blessed to have such a great family, and they were so motivational and helped me kind of work through it because there were moments where I didn't even know if I was going to be able to do gymnastics again, but I've
mhm.
always been a pretty determined person. So I felt like, if I had a goal in mind, I could somehow make it through. So I pushed and pushed. And I remember the first time I went to physical therapy after my hip surgery, I literally had to drag my leg on the floor with
Mm.
crutches because it, like, I couldn't even pick it up. So I'm very proud that I came such a long way and was able to finish my gymnastics career, able to walk even because that was a challenge
Yeah.
at first.
Yeah, I had I know in high school I was having a lot of shin issues already.
Hmm.
People really
I
don't know
remember.
this. They don't know this, but yeah, I attempted to high jump as well as sprint, the 100, 200, and any relay they wanted to put me on. And I realized that the more I high jumped, the more my shins would actually ache and like get more pain. So I actually in a track meet, I think it was my sophomore year, I was running the 200 and I think I was running too fast for my body at the time. It was very early in the season and like I like tumbled forward and like burned my back. It was like a
Ow.
third-degree burn from the track. So like my skin was like dug into the
Oh
track.
my God.
And that day I was supposed to high jump, and I think that was the day that I just quit high jump entirely because I couldn't land on my like you land on your back, so I couldn't land on my back anymore. So I had to quit high jump at that point and just focus on sprinting, and that probably was the saving grace for my career to allow me to go into college without having to deal with any type of injury. And also, I know when I my freshman year in college, I it was a lot, the training was different, the weightlifting was different, and I like my shins were so bad to the point where like they were like, "Hey, maybe we should put rods in your shins." And my coach
Hmm.
wouldn't allow that. She was like, "That you're too young to have rods." And I was like 18, 19 years old. So for you to go through that 16, 17, 8, like that's crazy.
That's crazy
Wow.
too. So we've been through a lot.
Yeah, we've been through a lot, but like
Both
I
of
didn't
us.
have no rods.
Yeah, I've got some metal in there. I still have half of a screw and an anchor in my hip currently. So, yeah,
How's it going through
it was
TSA?
bad. Oh, you know what? Actually, fun fact about me, when I first got my surgery, the doctor allowed me to like have a card just in case.
Oh wow.
Yeah, I don't have it anymore. I don't know if I ever even picked it up, but I've never like actually, I think I've beeped once maybe like
Mm.
because of it. But I don't usually have any problems. It's like really deep in my hip bone, so yeah.
Oh wow. I don't even
Yeah.
know why I was thinking about like airport issues.
I know, no, but that's like so legit because it did come up and I was offered to like get something just in case. Yeah, at that
Yeah.
young age. And I think it's funny because, they do ask at TSA,
Yeah, they
like,
do.
do you have any metal in your body? But they never ask me because I don't, I guess, look old enough to have that, but I do. Yep.
Wow. I mean, the struggles that we go through as an athlete, and especially gymnasts, that you guys train from such a young age, and your body is taking so much impact.
Yeah.
from a young age for a very long time. So, and then
Hmm.
for you guys to compete in college as well, like your body is tired.
Yeah, we're considered like old by the time we're like 17, 18.
Yeah.
So, yeah,
Yeah.
it goes through a lot.
Um, I know, like, I don't think a lot of people know that about your story. I think when we were discussing it, I didn't really know too much about, you having that injury prior to coming into college. And I think
Hmm.
a lot of people would ask, like, were you fearful of your scholarship, or like your coaches finding out, or like how did your coach deal with the fact that like you were still kind of um, coming off an injury into your first year?
Everybody kind of goes through that thing when they're worried about their, well-being on the team. I think for me though, I was mostly worried about the school part because I had missed so much school.
Mhm.
My surgeries were back to back to back. So I, the people at school knew me as like the girl on crutches because I was always like somehow
Mm.
on crutches. And that year I had missed so much because I was still traveling with the national team. So I would miss for national team camps, and then I was getting surgery all the time. So I was nervous about my ACTs and my SATs and my grades. And although I did good, really good grades, I got A's in high school, especially my senior year. It was definitely a struggle. It's hard to be a student and an athlete, especially when you're going through those hard times, mentally and physically. So,
Mhm.
it was hard for me to focus on on school when I was literally just trying to figure out how I can walk again.
And even just hearing that you actually got to experience what it's like to be a student athlete prior to college, to have to
Thanks.
deal with that, the mentality of how do I come back from this injury? How do I walk again? How do I get the basic fundamentals back? A normal human being would be able to do to walk, all because of your sport, and then to come to college and then have to deal with that all over again. I know that when I experienced my injury in college, my freshman year, I was hurting to the point where I couldn't walk on my 2 feet.
Mm,
And I was taking the
mm,
disability bus to
I
classes.
know how you feel.
Yeah, yeah.
Mm.
And I had a boot and an air cast, and I had a crutch. And I think I like threw the crutch because I was like, this is
Over it.
however long it takes me to heal at this point. Like, I felt I was so far gone. And
Yeah.
I remember like my grades were suffering.
Hmm.
One, because I could never make it to class on time because it took a while for me to
Hmm.
get there. And then just like the focus element of like I just want to get back to where I used to be.
Right.
um I just want to walk again normally without a boot, without an air cast. I want to
Right.
be around my teammates again. I know in the training room, like I think your teammates become other teammates from other sports.
Yeah.
At that point, like I wasn't seeing my track teammates. I was seeing
Yeah.
you.
You were probably seeing me a
I was
lot.
seeing you. I was seeing tennis players, football players, basketball players that we couldn't swim and dive. We could not get out of the training room.
Yeah. I
And
spent
you
a lot of
guys
time.
were like my motivation, my encouragers, to get back to where I once was. Like we really did our best to uplift each other in the training room.
Hmm.
Let's talk about your viral video. The one where you are the routine where you are dancing to kind of like a mix of Beyonce songs.
Yeah.
That went viral. Like, what was that like? How was training for that like?
So when I first started so I choreograph floor routines. Some people know I started choreographing for my teammates my sophomore year, and then would slowly do more and more routines. And by the time I was a senior, I was getting ready to choreograph my routine with the help of our coach, Miss Val. And I wanted it to be really special. And like everybody knew that I was like the biggest Beyonce fan like in the world. So my senior year, I wanted to do a Beyonce medley, and that's when she had just come out with Formation and that Lemonade album, and she had just done that performance dedicated to the Black Panthers, for the Super Bowl like that year, and I was
Mhm.
so inspired. And I don't know, like I think I posted on my Instagram at some point this past year during Black history month about the story of like how I started my routine with the fist. So my whole like inspiration for that was like women empowerment. And I know that sounds like super deep and da 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 da, but that's super true. Like I just wanted it to be an anthem of like confidence and, you know, sassiness and classiness and embrace. I wanted to embrace my culture in that. So honestly, like the internet's been big for a long time, I would say, but there have been two other girls that had gone viral before I did, but like it wasn't like a bit, like it wasn't like a goal. I
Yeah.
feel like now it's a bigger thing to go viral. Like that's something that like, you know, not necessarily that you're shooting for, but it's something that's in mind. But back then, you know, Instagram wasn't as big of a deal. Like we were posting anything kind of.
Yeah.
So it was a shock. Like I was so happy. I got to do a few interviews and got to go on some TV shows here and there. Got to do some appearances after that, and it allowed me to expand my choreography business as well. But yeah, it was just a surreal experience, and I'm so like blessed to be able to see that people are still being inspired by that video, you know, a few years later, because it was a big deal to me and it meant so much to me to just be able to come out that year and leave my gymnastics career on that note. And then you mentioned training for it. So I have had a lot of injuries, more so than what I just mentioned when I had the ones that I've gotten surgery for. But backtracking a little bit, I don't mean to be so long-winded. But thank you, Maya. Hey.
Thanks, Maya.
Backtracking a little bit, I don't know if you remember, but in 2016, I had a really bad accident on the bars, and I broke my sternum, I broke my chest, I lacerated my liver, I ended up in the hospital. I was like totally, I couldn't really talk for a while because my vocal cords were really messed up from the wind being knocked out of me so heavily. So I was out cold. I came back and I strived my hardest to come back on 6 weeks later for the national championships, and I ended up competing with our team on floor. But I wasn't allowed to train for a long period of time, and after that, I definitely needed like a big rest time. And I realized after that experience that I needed to fall in love with the sport again, and that I needed to take control of my own career and not do it for, you know, maybe my coaches or, you know,
Yeah.
obviously I'm doing it for my team. Of course I'm doing it for my team, but I'm also doing it for myself. And that floor routine to me really embodied the fact that I wanted to embrace myself and my career and be proud of everything that I have accomplished despite everything that I have gone through. So, yeah.
Yeah. What an incredible story.
Thank you.
I'm just in awe of the fact that you had to find a love for the sport on multiple occasions. And it was like every time you got kicked down, you kept getting back up. And I mean, that's a testament to your endurance and your motivation. And even the support system around you, because I couldn't imagine you having to do that, you doing that by yourself.
Couldn't.
I know for a fact, even just with my measly little shin splints or whatever it was, whatever they wanted to
It was a
do,
lot.
it was, you know, it wasn't a cracked sternum, you know, and it wasn't, and like you could have had, you would have been literally justified if you decided to leave the sport after that injury. Completely justified. And you still came back, and you you were inspired by the Maya. You were inspired by Beyonce and the Black Lives movement and women empowerment. And I mean, you left on such a high note that you are still inspiring
Thank you.
people till this day, children to this day. I think that even just posting your video even yesterday, I mean, people were still like commenting, fire emojis, like it still excites people, and like I think Beyonce had released an article in March, and you made her list of like women in history. So I mean, Hallie, like, well done. Honestly,
Thank you.
well done.
Thank you so
Just
much. I
despite everything you have been through, you have still
mhm.
come on top, and you are still inspiring women to this day in, choreographing, coaching, like, wow. I
Thank you, Jeff. Thank you. I appreciate that. Fun fact, I forgot to mention this, that I told you earlier. If you look closely in that video, don't ever do this as an athlete or a gymnast, especially. I was literally landing on one leg in that viral routine. When I stuck my landing, my leg was so unstable that I could not even train. So I just competed every weekend. I literally did not train it. So I think that just goes to show you the power of the mind and the power of, being um, true to yourself and believing in yourself, believing in the people around you. And yeah, I feel like it took a village, but I was able to I feel like this is very common amongst all athletes. We're able to kind of trick our mind into believing that anything is possible. And I
Yeah.
think that that's how you make it through life. So,
Mhm.
you know?
Yeah, I couldn't even imagine trying to run under 12 seconds and not training at all. I mean, that's basically what you did. You just competed.
Yeah, I had to do it that
You
way. I
showed
just
up to the meets, and like every routine that you did was on off top, like off the top of the
mm,
mind. The mind is a
mhm,
powerful it's a powerful thing
yeah.
for sure. I mean, you can accomplish anything. You could literally trick your mind into telling you that you're not injured to the point where like you're so injured you can't walk. And
I
that's
used
what
to tell myself that, yep.
a lot of us athletes do. At the time, like when I was dealing with a lot of the coaching switches, like our coaches kept coming and going, and I was scared for my own scholarship. So I really tried not to show that I was injured in any way, shape, or form, although I tried to stay as transparent as possible that like this is
Mhm,
something that I'm dealing with. But at the same time, I'll say for track athletes, and I think just for NCAA athletes in general, we have to sign our scholarship every year. Those 4 years aren't guaranteed. So every year I'm trying to prove myself or pretend like I'm not injured. I'm still here. I think I'm still capable of training and competing
mhm,
at an elite level, and
yeah,
having to deal with the coaches um, and deal with your mindset on like how can I come back to the sport even though like I know that I might not get back to where I once was, even though I believe that I can. And it's
mhm,
it's a tricky, it's a double-edged sword almost,
yeah,
when you're dealing with those kinds of injuries and elements in the NCAA when coaches come and they go and dealing with
yeah,
those injuries. So
yeah. We made it.
we made
We
it.
made it. We
So
made
so
it.
what are you up to now?
So now I am, so I'm a choreographer. After gymnastics, I took a break from the sport, kind of. I did choreography and I would travel around the country and actually traveled out of the country to do some choreography work as well, and do clinics and individual work. Um, and and I still do acting, and I actually did some stunt work, which was really cool.
Oh, that's awesome.
For a couple of things, I stunt doubled a well-known artist in her music video, which was really cool. Um,
We know, can we
and
say it?
I don't know.
Oh,
I don't know.
okay.
It was maybe later. I don't know. But I did stunt double an artist, and it was really fun. I did that, and then now I'm an NCAA coach. I coach college gymnastics. I packed up my stuff. I'm originally from Los Angeles, California, born and raised, LA girl to the core. And I moved to New York this past year during the pandemic. It was a huge transition for me, but yeah, I'm a NCAA coach. I coach at Long Island University. I'm a gymnastics coach, an assistant gymnastics coach. And it's super fun, and it's really interesting to see. It's interesting to be back in the sport at this capacity because I was doing choreography, but I literally just work on dance, like no tumbling or anything like that. So when I came back to the sport, it was kind of like readjusting and kind of seeing how the girls work out and remembering the little things that like me and all of my teammates at UCLA used to do, and it's really fun. And I love to coach them and inspire them and hopefully help them grow, not just as gymnasts but as people too.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah, I love that you're still participating in the sport, especially after all that you've been through. I my shins, like with my shins, I left the sport completely. Like I couldn't look at it, I
understand.
couldn't watch it.
Oh
I think
yeah, I understand that.
the only thing that kept me around was my sister. She runs track at University of Houston, and
Oh cool, I
um,
didn't know that.
yeah, yeah, and so I mean, I think she was still in high school at the time when I graduated
Okay.
college, and so she was still running at like Texas Relays, and she was still having her track meets her junior and senior year. So I would go attend. That was the only thing that was keeping me around. If not for her, the sport would not see me.
I feel you on that. A lot of athletes need that break, and I
That break, yeah,
technically took that break, and just in a different capacity because I needed it too, like big time. So
yeah,
I tried to take a whole nother route, and gymnastics kind of just like found me again.
yeah.
Yeah.
And it's just what a full circle kind of story.
Mhm.
For sure. I might have got a question for you. Where was your favorite place that you traveled to teach
Teach
choreography?
choreography. Actually, not last year, sorry. You know what? Sometimes I feel like 2020 doesn't count. But in 2019, in the fall, I actually traveled to Australia and did some choreography for a
Ah,
clinic, and I thought that was so fun. I went early and stayed late. So I went to Melbourne to teach, and then I vacationed in Sydney afterwards before I came home. It was really fun.
oh, I love that. I didn't even know you were in Australia. Wait,
Yeah, it was
yes.
fun. I did. I posted with a kangaroo and at the opera house, the Sydney Opera House. I did post, but it was a couple years ago. So, well, I guess it's like a year and a half ago. Yeah,
Oh, I love that. Wow,
that
I
was
didn't know
fun.
that.
Hmm.
Yeah, Australia's on all of our lists.
Yeah, it was so fun. I was a little afraid about like the bugs and stuff because I hear that everything's just like a little more vicious there. But we saw some really cool animals. I went to the zoo twice. I pet a koala. I think that's on my
Oh,
Instagram page.
I saw, yeah, you
Yeah,
know what? I remember that. Yeah.
yeah, I did that, and then I taught choreography, so that was really fun.
I love that. Hallie, I just want to thank you so much for coming on to 98% and sharing your
Absolutely.
story. I know a lot of people don't know these elements of your story, and for you to come up on here and share that, that's just a testimony to how much you've grown, how much wisdom you have. You just have so much life and wisdom to give. I'm so proud of you and
I'm
all
so
that you
proud of
have
you too.
accomplished. Thank you
Thank
so
you.
much, and we'll definitely catch up again.
Yeah, for sure.
For sure. I'm coming to New York. Trust and believe, and
Yes,
we'll do it
come to New
live.
York.
Yeah.
Yeah, live chat, live 98% chat with Daphne
Yes.
in New York or LA because I'll be in both. I go back and forth. So LA is still home forever.
Yeah.
Thank
All
you
right.
so much, Daphne. I
Of
really
course.
appreciate it having me on here. So appreciate you always.
Thank you.